All right, good morning. We are here for session 2 of the budget review process. Sean, will you please call roll?
Deputy Mayor Baggett.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember DeCoursey.
Here.
Councilmember Holman.
Excused.
Councilmember Pelosa.
Here.
Councilmember Trout-Manuel.
Here.
Councilmember Wells.
Here. All right, let's just jump right into it. So today in workshop, well actually it's called workshop number 3, we have the general fund overview, public works, engineering, public works, streets, community development, finance, and parks. Okay.
Okay, welcome. All right, what I'd like to start, we are going to be venturing into the general fund this morning, so I'd like to start with a little bit of overview of where we're at with the general fund. And I'm happy to report after 2 years of very sluggish sales tax, not overall sales tax growth, but the sales tax growth in the general fund of about 1.5% each previous year, we're experiencing about a 4.8% growth in our sales tax overall, and the general fund is benefiting from that to about 5.5%, because actually construction sales tax dollars are down a bit this year over the last year. When we look at sales tax as a whole the last couple of years, we've seen some growth, 3-4%, but the piece that goes to the general fund has not been as strong. So we are anticipating right now, I just said 5.5, well, about 6.1% is what we're projecting, or where we're sitting now, we're projecting that to be about 5.5% over the year. Where we're growing in our sales tax, I did mention that construction was down this year. It's negative actually, but these are the areas, services, automotive, and wholesale, that are doing very well. And retail has a modest increase of 2.8% over 2017. We are projecting almost a 17% increase in 2019 due to the addition of the Marketplace Fairness Act money that the city started receiving this year. We're receiving it now. And also the tax revenues are being retained on construction in the general fund in this budget. Marketplace Fairness revenue, in the first quarter of this year, Department of Revenue has shared with us that that's about $70,000. But for every dollar of Marketplace Fairness money, they reduce our mitigation by $70,000. So our June distribution for mitigation this year was reduced $70,000. It was about, instead of being $407 or $84,000, it was like $414,000. So it's a wash. And as a reminder, the Marketplace Fairness or the mitigation money that we have received since the switching in the sales tax sourcing will sunset on September of next year, and will no longer, under the current law, receive mitigation money. And the follow-up, we anticipate sales tax on construction to maintain about $2 million a year in both 2019 and 2020, and that's what adds to that 17% increase. Property taxes, we assume a statutory maximum increase of 1%. We also do get new construction dollars, but that's new asset, if you will, being added to the city, and so new services need to be provided for that new addition. This is a reminder of the property tax dollars our citizens pay. For every dollar that our citizens pay in the city, 14 cents or 14% of that dollar comes back to the city. The rest of it goes to the school district, then the state, Sound Transit, King County, and then there's all these other little districts, Port and
VRFA.
Yeah, VRFA, that's it. Okay.
Library. Councilmember Pelosa.
Can you explain what we give to the school district and why?
What we get for the school district on this 45 cents?
Yeah.
Well,
And why?
And why?
When they have levies.
Okay.
That's
Well,
what that is.
Well, a portion of that is the state levy, that the state automatically takes a certain percentage of a property tax, The balance would be voted levies that the citizens have approved, this $475 million bond issue, as well as their maintenance and operation levies that they run.
But I know, because I pay those school taxes. But why do we reference it to the city?
Well, this is just to address the property tax that is paid by the citizens in the city. And when I talk about a 1% increase, which isn't a lot for the city, and just to remind everyone that our portion of every dollar of property taxes that are paid by our citizens, that the majority of that dollar does not go to this city, it goes elsewhere. And a lot of times, this is just a reminder, if anybody's watching these budget hearings that we're going through, a reminder that yes, their property taxes may go up, but it's not the city. Okay. This is just a chart that shows the highlights of the general fund revenues. What you see here is other taxes. You see in the chart we have sales tax going up. Yeah, I'm looking at the orange and the red bar here. That's the 19 and the 20 budget. And property taxes, you see that there's just a little bit of growth. That's that 1% plus new construction. Sales tax is due to that 17% increase that we're going to see, that bump in 2019, and then a modest growth of about 2.5% over that in 2020. Of course, if we get stronger Marketplace Fairness Act revenue, we will come back and revisit those revenue lines. We've got 1 quarter in, and I'll find out at the end of September how we did in the 2nd quarter. Other taxes, the decrease there in other taxes would be the loss of the annexation sales tax credit, and then license fees and other. What you're seeing there is, one is the change that we've had in the salaries and benefits, where this is where those salary and benefit reimbursements for legal, HR, and finance are coming back into the general fund. And Bob, remind me what else is in 2020 that's popping that up.
Isn't that the transfer from the...
Yeah, but that's in 2019. But then we
the
bump
transfer
up.
from cumulative
Oh, that's the
reserves.
cumulative reserve. That's the that's the $4 million transfer in from cumulative. Thank you. It slipped my mind. It shouldn't have, but it did. Because that's a big number. But I wanted to make sure that you could see where that transfer was coming in from cumulative reserve, and also there's a component due to the reimbursement of the salaries that we're now paying out of the general fund, but the other funds are reimbursing us. Okay.
Shell, I'm sorry. Where is that money going to be shown in here, that $4 million?
You would see it in the smaller book on page page 1, which is right after the general fund summary tab. And it is the transfer.
It's under interfund transfers.
Yeah, it should
Other
be.
revenues, that bottom line, 4.1.
Yeah. Interfund public utility taxes, 4.12.
Okay.
That very bottom line.
Yeah. Okay, and the cumulative reserve fund shows the transfer out. Oh, it's on book 2, page 44, you said? 54. Oh, I was looking down. Oh, 54. y'all. Look at that, the very last number in the last column on page 54.
Okay.
Again, not to repeat myself too much, but general fund sales tax had been sluggish the last 2 years, but this year it's doing better. And now with this switch over of retaining the construction sales tax in the general fund, it now has become 29% of the general fund revenue budget. Reminder, all bank property taxes were levied in 2017, and property tax revenue growth is limited to 1%, which is 29% of the general fund. So these two revenue sources is 58% of our general fund budget. Again, the sunset of streamlined sales tax mitigation payment is September 30th, 2019, and it's being replaced by the Marketplace Fairness Act. And again, every dollar for dollar of our mitigation, for every dollar received, our mitigation reduced $1, and our demand for services are increasing at a faster rate than our budgeted revenue growth with public safety, transportation, human services. And it's the labor market. You know, our salaries and benefits are 60% of our general fund budget. And they've changed the CPI. We used to be Seattle, Tacoma, Bremerton. We're now Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue. And those unions watch the increases in that. And there is a marked impact. And we're also in a region of the country where we have a high demand for services and with not as many people to fill the positions available. Okay. These are just some things to keep you aware of, that the growing need in human services with the homelessness and the mental health. And PERS 1 continues to pay about 5% of the PERS. That's that 12.83% that the city pays. About 5% of that goes to fund PERS 1, and the balance goes to fund PERS 2 and 3. And again, our labor contracts, I keep belaboring these points, but sometimes it's best to mention them because we go through a lot of material and make sure everybody catches it at some point. But the police are up at the end of this year and Teamsters next year. And the left one, liability, you'll see that, we'll talk about that later this morning in Department 98 in General Fund is where we budget that liability. So on this chart, this is just a summary of our general fund revenues, and you can see the property tax and the sales tax, the blue and the red, and that's 58%. And our salaries and benefits are about 60%. So you could say our property tax and our sales tax almost cover our salaries and benefits. And so for everything else we do for our contracts, maybe we look to other funding. Here's where we like to keep our finger on the fund balance, so to speak. Putting this budget together, we looked at that. We know that there's going to be an underspend or over revenue this year, and we've anticipated that to be about $5.4 million. So we've gone ahead and incorporated that into our estimated ending fund balance and have carried it forward through 2019 and 2020. We've also estimated through 2019, conservatively, between 2019 and 2020, that we'll have about a $3.5 million underspend. It'll probably be more than that, but for budgeting purposes, we'd be in negative fund balance if because I have to put these numbers into the general ledger. So what we've done is we have contra accounts that we have built into Department 98, $1.5 million in 2019 and $2 million in 2020. And I'll point those out to you when we get to Department 98. That would leave us at 2020 with an estimated fund balance in the general fund of $7.1 million. And I think the next chart is our fund balance, our policy reserve. So in 2019, here's our minimum and our maximum for fund balance and the cumulative reserve and the total. We had been planning at a 12% general fund and a 10% cumulative reserve with a maximum of 22%. At the end of 2019, our ending fund balance will be 13%. No, that's our minimum, is 13%, but it'll actually be 29%. I'm on the wrong line. So our minimum is 13%, 8 in the general fund, 5 in cumulative reserve, and then 12 in the general fund and 10 in the cumulative reserve, for a total of 22%. We will be running 16% and 13% and 29 total percent at the end of 2020. We are in a position where we have a lot of cash right now, and this is what's helping us carry us through this biennium. At the end of 2020, we dropped down to 16.5%, or 7.1 million. So we're right in the, a little bit on the lower end of our range, 3.5% above our minimum. Any questions on that? So we'll start now. There's no questions on that general fund overview. We'll start with the public works portion. This will be in the general fund, and it'll start under the public works tab on page 129.
All right, so some of this we discussed yesterday for organizational chart and some of the general overview of the department. So this is just our general fund portion of it, which incorporates our engineering staff and our street staff for maintenance operations. So for some of our major goals within the engineering staff and within the street staff, if we want to touch on those real quick. So a lot of focus for engineering is transportation funding and being involved in the regional forums regarding transportation funding, which we support every year. In addition, obtaining grants, which you'll see in there. For 2017, we had received about $8 million in grants so far. We're still waiting on a few more grants.
What page?
132. Halfway down that sheet, the third one down. So in 2017, we received about $8 million in grants. And we've got several applications out there and more applications being filed for this year, so we'll know at the end of this year how successful we were on grants for 2018. And then we also have been working with finance on the rate study for all three of the utilities, water, sewer, and storm. As far as the line items for the engineering budget, there really isn't any significant changes in there. So unless there's something specific that you have to ask about. For the streets division, we're on page 139. So a lot of focus for our streets division is on meeting our requirements for sign retroactivity and making sure that we're improving our signage and replacing old signs that are out there so that they're visible. Our pothole patrol is another significant focus, so they've met all of the complaints that they've received so far for this year, and that is the goal, is to address 100% of those complaints every year. And then another, on page 140, another major accomplishment for the Streets Division is that they actually put down about 340 tons of asphalt, in addition to 132 tons of cold mix in 2017, so they are getting a lot of work done on that pothole patrol. And they also have worked to secure some additional equipment so that they can actually do more sidewalk repair to address some of our triple fall hazards.
Do we know how much sidewalk work we have? How many miles or?
I don't know that we have that quantified. Basically, we react to complaints that we receive, and when we're doing projects, we look at the complaints that we have received, where all those are at, where M&O is getting complaints from the public, where we're getting complaints from the public, and then we combine that into a project to go do. In the meantime, when we get those initial complaints, M&O goes out and addresses the immediate issues. So they might go out and mark it, grind off a little edge of it to make it a little bit safer, and then we'll add it to the list to actually go in and do formal replacement. What they have, the equipment that they've recently gotten is basically a slab jack, so they can lift the panel up of the sidewalk, fill in underneath it, and reset it.
Great.
Councilmember DeCoursey.
So Ingrid, on the patching and grinding, how many more years of life do we get out of a surface when we do that?
It depends upon what's causing the issue. So if it's a subgrade issue and they do a full depth patch, we can get several more years for that. The issue becomes outside of the patch area where they've done it is what is the condition of that road. And if you recall previously I talked about some of our standards 20, 25 years ago was about 3 inches of asphalt for a local street, which is not a whole lot of asphalt when you're running a lot of garbage trucks on there and lots of traffic on there. So that will continue to fail outside those patch areas. But if we can take care of where we have the potholes, we can get several more years out of that roadway.
It seemed like certain portions of Auburn went north we did a few years ago, and that seems to be holding up really well. I don't recall
So-
exactly how it's done, but it seems like it's really doing its job.
Yeah, and that patching was part of the preservation program, not necessarily what our streets crew does. And part of that was to do that patchwork in preparation for going after grant preservation funds so that we could maintain the condition of the street at a level that would make it meet the criteria for those grants. So by doing that patching work in advance, we can reduce, one, how much we're asking for the overlay, but also maintain that PCI rating so that we hit the sweet spot with the grants. So major changes or highlights for the street budget. So you may recall that it's not on that list there, but you may recall we talked on Tuesday about a new FTE for the streets crew that's actually getting paid for by water. So that one is in there. And in addition, we have an increase in our lighting costs, which you'll see in 2019. In 2020, we actually have a reduction because we have a proposed program improvement to do retrofitting of all of our city-owned streetlights to LEDs, which is a significant cost, but I think it's at the point in time where we need to look at doing that. And then we also have an increased budget for guardrail repairs, so we're seeing a lot more accidents damaging guardrail, and so we need to beef that budget up so that we